Imagine a man who, for over 2 decades, managed to elude justice while committing some of the most heinous crimes imaginable. A man who blended seamlessly into society, working on the very roads children traveled every day. This is the chilling story of Mack Edwards, a name that sends shivers down the spine of those who know his dark legacy. Welcome to our deep dive into the disturbing tale of the child murders of Mack Edwards, a journey into the mind of a man whose facade hid a terrifying truth. Join us as we uncover the horrors and heartbreak of his victims, and the relentless pursuit of justice that finally brought his reign of terror to an end. If you're intrigued by true crime stories and want to stay updated with our latest videos, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. Your support helps us bring more stories like this to light. Now, let's dive into this chilling case. Each day millions of people travel California's freeways, seemingly unaware they are driving over graves. One man abducted between 6 and 22 children between 1953 and 1971, disposing of most of their bodies beneath our highways. The first. Stella Darlene Nolan. Stella Darlene Nolan, born January 1, 1945, was the only child of Owen and Elena Nolan. In 1953, Owen worked as a handyman while Elena ran a sandwich stand at Auction City Flea Market and Auction House in Norwalk, California. They made their home in a quaint trailer park at 16108 Atlantic Avenue in nearby Compton. Despite their lean financial situation, the Nolan family was happy. Owen and Elena adored their little daughter. She was a lovely child with blonde curls, big cornflower blue eyes, and a charming personality. Saturday, June 20th, 1953, was the day before Father's Day. Elena planned to take her daughter to work at Auction City, as she often did. Knowing her daddy had to work the next day, Stella asked her mother to give him his gift and greeting card early. "You know, Mommy," Stella whispered, "I think I'll give Daddy his card today." "You can't tell what's going to happen." Inside the card, Stella wrote, "Dear Father, I hope you have a very happy Father's Day." After Elena gave Owen his presents, mother and daughter made their way to the concession stand. Stella played with her schoolmate, Barbara and Churchill, while her mother worked a few feet away. Stella was exceptionally well behaved and made sure to check in with her mother every hour as instructed. When 9 p.m. rolled around, Stella didn't make her hourly appearance. Immediately, Elena knew something was wrong. Elena scoured the large marketplace frantically, looking for her 7-year-old daughter with no luck. No one, including little Barbara N., saw Stella leave. Certainly, no one saw her interacting with any stranger. That alone would be out of character for Stella, who her mother remembered as shy, almost apprehensive, of people she didn't know. Elena wasted no time and called the police. Los Angeles detectives searched high and low for the child. Most missing children, in their experience, showed up eventually. Some children wandered off and got lost, and others ran away. Few children were kidnapped. Like Elena, the police found zero traces of the child. As hours turned to days, the hope of finding the girl dwindled. Not only were there no clues pointing to Stella's whereabouts, but there were also no witnesses even in the crowded marketplace. Police extensively questioned little Barbara N., Stella's playmate. Barbara N. insisted she left the area for a moment, and when she returned, Stella was gone. The girls weren't talking to anyone, and she hadn't noticed any strangers showing interest in Stella. Police interviewed the Nolans at length about the possible kidnapping of their daughter and uncovered 2 potential clues. A week prior, Elena recalled a strange conversation with a man she didn't know. "You have a beautiful daughter," the man said as he patted Stella's head. "Is there any chance of my kidnapping, buying, or stealing her?" Such statements weren't uncommon. Stella was a pretty girl. But coupled with the fact that her daughter was missing, Elena couldn't shake the conversation. "Not in a million years. She is not on the auction block." Elena recalled her reply. Given that information, investigators became concerned that Stella was stalked and kidnapped by a sexual predator. It would become a focus of their investigation. Elena and Owen confessed a secret that turned the inquiry on its head. A secret Mr. and Mrs. Nolan planned to take to their grave. Stella was not their biological child. Back in Los Angeles, police continued the search. They investigated every sex offender they knew and assembled a search party of 500 men. Officers left no stone unturned. They arrested many suspects, including a nephew of Owen's. None of these efforts panned out. By the second day of Stella's disappearance, police were taking around 10 telephone calls per hour. All of the calls were alleged tips, and the investigators followed each one of them. None of them led to Stella. Time marched on, and every day the search for Stella became more dismal. The Nolans stayed in their trailer home, just praying that Stella would walk through the door one day. That day never arrived. Stella's disappearance became one of Los Angeles' earliest missing child cold cases. The Nolans never gave up hope. They continued to search and pray for Stella's return. Sadly, on January 21, 1959, Helena passed away at 46 years old, never learning of Stella's fate. A blanket of fear covered Southern California after the disappearance of Stella Nolan. Mothers clutched their children tightly, unsure if Stella met with foul play. If someone stole her, that person was able to blend in seamlessly. It could have been anybody, and everyone was a suspect. As time passed, this sensation of imminent stranger danger diminished as no kidnappings occurred. Parents let down their guard, and life slowly returned to normal. The sense of safety wouldn't last long. In 1956, 12-year-old Brenda Owl came from Fort Bragg, California, to Los Angeles for a visit with her married sister, Mary Edwards. August 6th of that year, Brenda and a 13-year-old neighbor boy named Donald Baker disappeared while riding their bicycles up the old San Gabriel Canyon Road. The children never returned. An extensive search of the San Gabriel foothills and nearby Morris Reservoir turned up Don's coat and their missing bicycles, but not the kids. Even so, police investigator Sergeant Strait stated, "There is still nothing in this case to indicate that an accident or criminal violence has occurred. If there had been something, it would have turned up by now." Brenda and Don had become close. Friends and relatives described their relationship as puppy love. Perhaps this description is the reason investigators were inclined to believe the two ran away together. Had their disappearance been investigated closer, the mysterious vanishings would have ended here. They didn't. On March 23, 1957, Thomas Eldon Bowman of Redondo Beach went hiking with his father and siblings at the Arroyo Seco Trail above Devil's Gate Dam in Pasadena. At the tail end of the hike, Tommy received permission to run ahead of the family to the car. Tommy never left earshot of his father, Eldon, and the family fully expected to see the child waiting by the car. However, when they reached their vehicle, Tommy was gone. There was no sign of the 8-year-old anywhere. A party of 400 searched between the dam and Angeles Crest Highway. Police even dragged the lake. Like the other disappearances, nothing remained of Tommy Bowman. It was as if he vanished into the air. Unlike the other children, 2 witnesses saw Tommy in the company of a man and provided a description. 10-year-old Johnny Bond claimed he saw Tommy in the hours after he went missing. According to Johnny, Tommy was crying and in the company of a man who was dirty. Johnny told police the boy he saw wore a Davy Crockett belt. This detail was not yet public, but it was true. Mrs. Alice Davidson told officers that a strange-looking man with blonde hair walked 6 feet in front of her with a young, crying boy who matched Tom's description. As with the case of Stella Nolan, police arrested every known sex offender and child molester they could reach. None of them was the man who took Tommy. There was a lull in child disappearances after that of Thomas Bowman. Another 3-year gap, to be precise. On July 12, 1960, 80 children went on a hike in Angeles National Forest near Buckhorn Flat. The children were with the local YMCA and well supervised. 6-year-old Bruce Creeman of Granada Hills, California, hiked in a small group when his buddies noticed he was no longer with them. Only minutes before, he was trekking alongside them. Hike leaders thought he must have turned back and desperately looked for the boy. It soon became evident that Bruce was missing, and the police were called. Despite an extensive search and heavy press coverage, no trace of Bruce Kramer has ever been found. On August 18, 1961, 11-year-old Taryn Lynn Tompkins vanished while walking 5 blocks from summer school to her home in Torrance, California. She is still missing. The Brown family lived in a trailer park about 8 blocks from the Tompkins home. On Tuesday evening, July 2, 1962, 11-year-old Dorothy Gale Brown went outside to ride her bike. Close to 8 p.m., Dorothy's parents noticed she hadn't returned. Her father, William, immediately set out to find her. A block away, he located her bicycle, not the child. He called the police immediately. Police searched tirelessly, hoping this wasn't like the Karen Tompkins case. Their hopes were dashed when a little girl found Dorothy's little white summer dress stuffed into a beer can at Coronado Del Mar, 40 miles away in Orange County. Investigators brought in skin divers. Around noon, they found Dorothy's nude body deceased 150 yards from the shore. The coroner supposed Dorothy entered the water approximately 6 to 8 hours before an apparent drowning. It was unclear if she was shoved or fell from a boat, but her injuries suggested she was sexually assaulted. Her death was no accident. Police quickly connected Dorothy's murder with Karen's due to the proximity and the fact that the girls were the same age. Dorothy's sexual assault proved their theory that the killer was a sexual predator. Once again, police rounded up every known child molester or sex offender they could find. Still, none of them proved to be the killer. There were still no clues, aside from the description given after the abduction of Tommy Bowman. Police couldn't possibly arrest and question every dirty blonde man in LA County. Police would need to wait. Sometimes time is the rope with which a criminal might hang himself. No one could commit so many horrible crimes and not make a mistake. Eventually, the murderer would trip himself up. He'd get sloppy or feel guilty and unburden himself to someone. Sadly, he'd kill again before any of that happened, and the wait would be a long one. 6 years, to be exact. Gary Rocha, sometimes spelled Rochet, 16 years old, was shot to death in his parents' bedroom in Granada Hills on November 26, 1968. Gary's friends dropped him off after school around 3:30 that afternoon. His mom was at work, and his father was at sea. His younger sister was visiting a friend. Police assumed he surprised a burglar. After all, Gary wasn't abducted, and he was older than the other victims. Not a month later, on December 16, 1968, Roger Dale Madison had an argument with his father about smoking. As a result, the 15-year-old Sylmar, California boy sped away on his motorcycle. He was never seen again. The family believed he ran away, as did the police. The following year would bring yet another child murder. Someone abducted 13-year-old Donald Allen Todd from his home in Pacoima on May 16, 1969. Sadly, 2 children found Donald Todd's bullet-ridden body below a bridge just a mile and a half from his home. Police were stumped. Typically, one murderer will have a clear type. Their victims belong to one age group, one gender. For this reason, no one connected most of these murders. It would take less than a year to gain that insight. On March 6, 1970, a 50-year-old man walked into a Los Angeles Police Department precinct, laid a loaded gun on the counter, and asked to speak with someone about a crime. He looked like the average middle-aged white man. His deeply tanned and leathery skin suggested he held a blue-collar job that kept him in the sun. When an officer was produced, the stranger claimed his conscience bothered him. He wanted to confess his involvement with a kidnapping. That man was Mack Ray Edwards of Sylmar, California. Mack was born on October 17, 1918, in Arkansas. He married Mary Howell in 1946, and the couple relocated to California, where Mack found employment as a heavy equipment operator. Mack was contracted through Caltrans to help construct freeways. Mack and Mary adopted 2 children together and were well-liked in the community. The night before he surrendered, Mack and an unnamed 15-year-old accomplice entered the home of Edgar Cohen of Sylmar, California. The pair stole a few items from the house, but most importantly, they stole the Cohen children. Valerie, Cindy, and Jan Cohen were 12, 13, and 14 years old, respectively. Mack and the teenage boy drove to Banquet Canyon, north of Newhall, with the 3 girls. To Mack's surprise, 2 of the victims escaped. In a panic, he released the 3rd. Mack didn't choose the Cohen girls at random. Their address was 15768, Roxford Avenue in Sylmar. Mack's address was 12432, Ralston Avenue in the same city. These girls knew their abductors, could identify them, and fled to some unknown place in the San Gabriel Mountains. Of course, Mack didn't put it that way. In his kidnap confession, he told Sergeant George Rock his conscience bothered him. As officers placed him in handcuffs, Mack lamented how he couldn't sleep or eat. "I have a guilt complex. I couldn't eat, and I couldn't sleep, and it was beginning to affect my work. You know I'm a heavy equipment operator. That long grater I'm using now costs a lot of money, $200,000. I might wreck it. Or turn it over and hurt someone." Mack gave general directions to the Cohen girls' location. Thankfully, the sisters weren't harmed but understandably shaken up. He told officers he had more to confess than the failed kidnapping. He wanted to admit to a few murders. By a few, he meant 6. According to Mack, his first murder was that of little Stella Nolan way back in 1953. He explained how he lured her from her mother's watchful eye and brought her to his home, where he raped her. He then drove her to the Angeles forest and strangled the child before throwing her tiny body over a bridge. The next day, Mack returned to the crime scene to see if Stella's body was still there. He was surprised to find Stella alive, around 100 yards from where he left her, and sitting up but unable to move or speak. With Stella living, Mack had a chance. At that moment, he could have gotten Stella help and gotten himself help, too. That wouldn't change the fact that Mack Ray Edwards was a sexual deviant who preyed on children, but he wouldn't be a murderer. Instead, Mack took out his pocket knife and stabbed her to death. Mack also admitted to the kidnap and murder of Don Baker and Brenda Owl. He said he paid Don to lure Brenda into the foothills, where Mack separated the kids and killed them both. Brenda's family was less than surprised. Mack was Brenda's brother-in-law. As killers sometimes do, Mack aided in searching for Brenda and Don when he wasn't at work building freeways with Caltrans. He next confessed to the murder of Gary Rocha. He never intended to kill Gary but to abduct, rape, and murder his sister, who was away from home that fateful day. Mack's next confession involved Roger Madison. Like the Cohen sisters, Roger lived just a few houses away from his killer. Indeed, Mack knew the Madison family well. Mack's son was friends with the child. Roger's parents were in disbelief that Mack, whom they considered a nice, respectable man in his closest family, would do something so horrible as murder Roger. Mack claimed he lured Roger into an orange grove, stabbed him to death, and left. He returned the following day to bury the body. Finally, Mack confessed his responsibility for the disappearance and death of Donald Todd. In total, Mack admitted to 6 child abductions and murders over 17 years, officially anyhow. Regarding the Cohen sisters, he gave the following statement. "I'm glad they got away because it would have been 9 murders instead of 6. After his voluntary confession, police asked Mack to provide locations of the still missing children to bring their families closure. Mack obliged. Stella Nolan, he claimed, was buried beneath 8 feet of dirt under the 5 freeway near Thousand Oaks. As an employee of Caltrans, tasked with freeway construction, Mack had access to digging equipment to dispose of some of his victims. At last, the mystery of Stella Nolan's disappearance was solved. Unfortunately, Stella's mother died without ever learning her daughter's fate. As for Brenda and Donald Baker, Mack gave officers directions to their burial site, also. The search for their bodies was unsuccessful. Gary, of course, was found very shortly after his death. Perhaps this left Mack unsatisfied somehow and drove him to kill Roger Madison. California State Route 23 was under construction at the time, and Mack told police he used a bulldozer to bury him in a compaction hole beneath the freeway. As with Brenda and Donald, a thorough search of the reported burial location turned up nothing. Punishment. Mack Ray Edwards was charged with the murders of Stella Nolan, Gary Rocha, and Donald Todd. Although he confessed to 3 of the other murders, he wasn't charged with those since the bodies of Roger Madison, Donald Baker, and Brenda Owl were never recovered. During a preliminary hearing on March 17, 1970, Mack tried to plead guilty, but the judge refused to accept the plea. Guilty. I am guilty. Mack insisted. His lawyer asked that he could submit an innocent plea on Mack's behalf. I don't need a lawyer. I am guilty. Mack maintained. A guilty plea would have saved the trouble of a trial, but a death penalty case required one. The judge scheduled Mack's trial for May 6. Before that day arrived, Mack somehow acquired enough tranquilizers to overdose, but not quite enough to end his life. When that failed, Mack slashed his belly with a knife but only created superficial injuries. Mack's trial resumed on May 17, 1971. Mack begged for the death penalty. He wanted to pay the ultimate price for his crimes and was willing to trade places with the next man in line for the electric chair. The judge was glad to offer the gas chamber, which was California's preferred method of execution at the time. Mack would need to wait until the penalty phase for a formal death sentence. Sentencing was scheduled for June 5 of the same year. While Mack waited for his next hearing, police tried to fill in the gaps between the 1956 murders and the 1968 murder. Serial killers hardly ever take 12-year breaks. Mack bragged to cellmates and correctional officers that there might have been as many as 22 victims. However, when questioned by the court, Mack reversed himself. 6 is all there is, just 6. Deputy District Attorney David Kinner instructed the jury, if ever there was a case that cried out for the imposition of the death penalty, this is the case. This defendant has forfeited whatever right a person has to live in this society. Mack couldn't agree more. My attorney got a bit mixed up and pleaded for my life, said the confessed killer. I want the chair. That's what I've always wanted. I told them that when I went into the police station, they didn't say that in court. This was sadistic to bring these parents and other witnesses down here and put them through this. Mack would get his wish. On June 5, 1970, the judge sentenced Mack Ray Edwards to die at San Quentin's gas chamber. The judge, however, would never see Mack's execution. Instead, guards found Mack dead, having hanged himself with a television cord on October 30th, 1971. He was 53 years old. He left behind his 2 children and took his secrets with him. In 2007, author G. Weston DeWalt came across an old photograph of a police officer leading Mack Edwards from the court. He couldn't place it immediately, but Weston recognized Mack from somewhere. He searched his mind for the familiar man, and in a matter of minutes, realized where he knew him from. Mack was the subject of a police sketch in Pasadena. A police artist sketched the face from descriptions of the dirty, blonde man seen with Thomas Bowman when he vanished from the Arroyo Seco. Could Mack have been responsible for Tommy's disappearance, too? Weston became consumed with the case. He reported this new clue to police, who suspected someone else. Weston set up interviews with the Bowman family to talk about how they cope after Tommy's disappearances. He also interviewed Mack's then-living wife, Mary. The author asked Mary directly if she thought Mack might have known something about Tommy Bowman. The widow produced a letter written shortly before Mack's death. Mack wrote, "I was going to add one more, and that was the Tommy Bowman boy that disappeared in Pasadena, but I felt I would really make a mess of that one. So I left him out of it." In tracking Mack's whereabouts during Tommy's disappearance, Weston made another discovery. Mack worked for a subcontractor called Curse Construction. They had an equipment yard very close to the crime scene. During his private investigation of the Bowman case, Weston met LAPD cold case detective Vivian Flores. Vivian suspected Mack of the abduction of Karen Tompkins and other children in Los Angeles and Ventura counties. Vivian happened to have a copy of Mack's confession in the Donald Todd case. In this confession, Mack made another. He confessed to murdering Roger Madison and burying him beneath the Thousand Oaks Freeway. Incidentally, Edwards mentioned how it rained that night, and his truck became stuck in the mud. Mack used Caltrans equipment to recover his vehicle. Weston and Vivian knew it was a long shot but hoped someone from Caltrans could help narrow down Mack's location after each disappearance in hopes of pinpointing a burial site. An official from Caltrans introduced them to a retiree who worked with Mack until 1968. Amazingly, the man kept a detailed log documenting who he worked with, where they worked, and even the weather. The retiree's records showed that on the day Roger disappeared, Mack was building a portion of the 23 freeway. It rained that day. This new evidence was enough to revive the search to recover Roger's remains. During the fall of 2008, cadaver dogs alerted at a spot near the Tierra Rajita off-ramp near Moore Park. A team of investigators, anthropologists, and volunteers excavated a 25-foot pit over a few months but had to stop due to safety reasons. Roger's remains were never located. In August of 1961, Mack worked on a stretch of the 101 freeway in Goleta, in Santa Barbara County. In 2011, Santa Barbara cold case officers realized a 7-year-old girl named Ramona Price went missing from that location. The Price family was about to move to a new house, and Ramona was excited. She impatiently told her father she intended to walk to the new house. Her father didn't take her seriously since the new home was 7 miles away. "Go to it," he told his daughter. With that, Ramona vanished forever. Witnesses saw Ramona speaking with a man in a gray 1953 Plymouth, a car Mack was known to drive. The witnesses described the driver to a police artist. When police made the connection, they sent a team of 4 cadaver dogs to inspect the area. The dogs alerted to the presence of human remains under the Winchester overpass. Again, Ramona's remains have never been found. No one knows how many lives Mack Ray Edwards has taken. Sure, he claims to have taken a 12-year hiatus, but Mack was a pedophile, murderer, and, by default, a liar. Every time a child's remains are discovered in California, Mack should be excluded as a suspect. It doesn't matter that precious few relatives are still alive who would find closure in locating the remains of Mack Edwards' victims. These kids are worth remembering and deserve a proper resting place. As we reach the end of our journey into the horrifying crimes of Mack Ray Edwards, we are left with a haunting reminder of the innocent lives lost and the unimaginable pain endured by their families. Edwards' story is a dark chapter in history, a sobering example of the evil that can lurk behind a seemingly ordinary facade. Justice may have finally caught up with him, but the scars of his actions remain. It's crucial to remember the victims and honor their memories by continuing to seek justice and prevent such tragedies in the future. Thank you for watching and joining us on this somber exploration. If you found this video informative and thought-provoking, please give it a thumbs up, share it with others, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest true crime stories. Stay safe, and take care.